At an emergency UN Security Council meeting yesterday, June 21st, 2025, following the attacks on Iran by the US, Russia and China, of all nations, are the ones calling for peace and safety and security in the Middle East. But what's crazy is that all of this was foretold by prophecies throughout the Christian church within the last 50 years. Take a listen to this video.
Ο οποίος ξεκίνησε, όπως είπαμε, από τη Συρία, Ουκρανία, Ισραήλ, αλλά μετά την Περσία, όταν χτυπήσουν το πυρηνικό πρόγραμμα της Περσίας οι Εβραίοι, τόσο η Κίνα όσο και η Ρωσία θα υποχρεωθούν να αντιδράσουν. Οι προφητείες λένε των Αγίων, και πρόσεξε, όχι μόνο των Ελλήνων Αγίων, και των Ρώσων και των Ρουμάνων και των Σέρβων, ότι θα ρίξουν πυρηνικά. Και το εκπληκτικό, ξέρετε τι είναι? Ο Πούτιν και η Κίνα δεν το θέλουν αυτό. Το θέλει πάρα πολύ η νέα τάξη πραγμάτων. Τους εξωθούν. Αυτή είναι η λέξη η ελληνική. Τους πιέζουν.
That is Metropolitan Neophytos of Morpho. He is a disciple and a close confidant of several contemporary Orthodox saints, Saint Paisios, Saint Porphyrios, Saint Iakovos, Saint Evmenios. And he's labored all for the last 20 years to collect all of the prophecies that came down to us from these saints and others throughout history. And he is constantly teaching and telling the world what the Orthodox saints have to say about the events that are coming. The key sign of the disintegration of Turkey will be the end of Erdogan, according to the prophecies, and the new leadership will be inclined toward the West, and they will do the bidding of the West. And one of that, the key thing that will happen was they will close the straits and not allow the Russian military to pass to go to the Middle East, where a lot of their interests will be at stake. And that will happen during a short war between Turkey and Greece, because that's a prerequisite for the straits to be shut. There must be a war, fair state going on. Otherwise, they're not justified by international law. So the prophecies are that Turkey will strike Greece over the disputed 6 miles between the two countries. And they have long had this dispute, well-known dispute going back decades and decades. And they will get the nod for this because ultimately it will be in the best interest of NATO to shut the straits and keep Russia out from the Middle East. And so this is all very much, whereas 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it would be hard to see these things as possibly materializing, even though the prophecies go back many, many decades. St. Paisios proposed 30 years ago, and he was saying these things. Now you can see them literally in front of us. Erdogan's party has largely lost power in the last elections. He has said he's going to step down, and now we're on the verge of possibly the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities, which is also said as a sign to provoke the larger war. So Turkey's, according to the prophecies, at the center of all the development going forward.
What's incredible is that the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities is part of these prophecies that are multifaceted and quite old. These are not recent. These are 30 plus years old from multiple saints across multiple regions. And the prophecies say that Iran's nuclear facilities are going to be attacked by none other than Israel. And that is going to be one of the precedents that lead to the next world war. What's incredible is that Indian Express is reporting that Iran's Security Council is going to decide on closing the Strait of Hormuz after Parliament has already backed and approved the move. This is incredible because this is also part of the prophecy we just listened to. It could be that the Strait of Hormuz is closed as a result of the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Let's listen to this video about the Strait of Hormuz and what it could mean should it be closed.
The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most vital shipping arteries in the world. Stretching just 55 kilometers between Iran and Oman, a fifth of the world's oil and gas pass through this narrow waterway, some 18 to 19 million barrels a day. Due to its economic importance, the strait has often been a hotspot for geopolitical tensions, with Iran repeatedly threatening its closure over the years. But any blockade of the trade route would spell significant consequences for Iran. Such a move would almost certainly invoke retaliation from the United States, which has naval military assets in the region. It would also complicate Iran's access to commercial goods and risk alienating Iran's foreign partners like China, which import significant amounts of Iranian oil. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz would also be bad news for the world economy. Global oil prices would spike, and Europe could face energy shortages, especially in countries dependent on Middle Eastern fuel. It would also disrupt industries across Europe, including manufacturing, transport, and agriculture, but also delay imports of raw materials and consumer goods. But analysts say that closing such a key shipping route would be near impossible under international law, as a UN convention stipulates that Hormuz is an international strait where the right of transit cannot be suspended.
You said attacks at nuclear facilities are red line, and you are calculating your response. So here is the question. What are the options? Are you going to retaliate at US bases in the region, or are you going to considering to close the Strait of Hormuz? And one more question as well. 2 times while you are at the table of negotiation, Israel and US attacked your soil. So do you still have the same level of trust to Western diplomacy? Thank you.
There are a variety of options available to us, and that's it. We never trusted Western countries when we negotiated them.
That's it. There's a variety of options available to us. And listen to the rest of his response.
And there are now even more reasons why we shouldn't trust them at all. Of course, the way for diplomacy should be always remain open. But as I said, we are not in the situation right now to decide how to engage in diplomacy once again and with whom. So let's wait for our response first. And when the aggression is ended, we decide how to engage in diplomacy once again.
Wow, that's the foreign minister of Iran speaking yesterday after the attack by the U.S. on the Iranian nuclear sites. What's really, really incredible, like I said, is that all of these prophecies that were mentioned in that first video talk about the Strait of Hormuz being closed. And I think there's a precedence there for the strait being closed due to war. Now, he initially mentions a war between Greece and Turkey. But if Turkey or Greece gets pulled into this conflict, then we could easily understand how that strait could easily be closed and confirm these prophecies further. Already, the prophecy talked about Iran's nuclear sites being attacked and that being a precedence for a global world war. Let's listen to what has astounded me the most, which is the fact that Russia and China both are calling for peace and security in the Middle East and condemning all of the things that are going on right now, the Israeli attacks on Iran and now U.S. attacks on Iran and the escalation of these conflicts in the Middle East. Let's listen first to Russia.
We have seen highly perilous attempts to drag third countries into this confrontation, and this, as was rightly noted, by our region, international peace and security as a whole. We concur with Mr. Guterres' position about the need to avoid internationalization of the conflict. Madam President, the present escalation around Iran did not start yesterday. Having attacked the country, Israel first received a direct pass from a host of Western states. The rhetoric uttered by British, French, and German diplomats in the lofty chambers of the UN Security Council and the IAEA Board of Governors are equally dangerous, just as dangerous as the deadliest weaponry, the blatant blackmail of the leadership of the agency in order to compel it to draft a vague so-called comprehensive assessment on the Iranian nuclear program, pushing through biased anti-Iranian resolutions at the IAEA Board of Governors. All of this this made those countries effectively complicit in the Israeli aggression. The fact that the launch buttons are being pressed by West Jerusalem does not absolve Washington, London, Paris, and Berlin from responsibility for what is taking place. Russia views the ongoing intense Israeli attacks targeting civilian objects in Iran as completely unacceptable and unlawful under international law. As a result of these reckless actions, unacceptable threats are being posed to international peace and security. Nuclear facilities cannot be targeted by strikes. We share the Secretary General's call for an immediate de-escalation resulting in a ceasefire. We firmly believe that a resolution can be provided for in a sustainable way only through diplomacy and negotiations. The goals of nuclear nonproliferation, whose cornerstone is the NPT, cannot and must not be attained through aggression at the cost of innocent lives. We believe that solutions whereby Iran's right to peaceful nuclear activity and Israel's unconditional safety and security will simultaneously be upheld are feasible and attainable. We have conveyed these options to our U.S. and Israeli colleagues as well as Iranian partners. We stand ready to provide them with the necessary assistance in seeking solutions that are acceptable to all. For now, we still have an opportunity to avoid another devastating war that would have unpredictable repercussions for the entire region and world. We stand ready to seek relevant solutions and decisions at the UN Security Council to engage constructively with all parties who genuinely advocate diplomacy and dialogue. Thank you.
I mean, it's incredible to sit here and listen to Russia advocate for diplomacy over force to come to a resolution with these conflicts. Those were bites and pieces of this entire speech made by this Russian representative. I want to be clear. He talked a lot in the beginning about Gaza and about how this could all be a distraction from what's actually going on in Gaza, which is really shocking to hear as well. What's so interesting to me as a Christian is hearing how many times he mentioned peace and security or peace and safety in that clip. Go back and watch it again. And now with those same words in mind, peace and security, peace and safety, let's listen to China's response to the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear sites that took place yesterday, June 21st, 2025.
President, I thank you for convening this emergency open meeting. I thank Secretary General Guterres for his statement and support his call for an end to the fighting and the return to diplomatic negotiations. Israel's actions violate international law and the norms of international relations, jeopardize sovereignty and security of Iran, and undermine regional peace and stability. China unequivocally condemns this. I will make 4 points. First, there must be an immediate ceasefire and an end to fighting. The use of force is not the right way to resolve international disputes. It will only exacerbate hatred and conflicts. The sooner a ceasefire is put in place, the less damage will be done. The parties to the conflict, Israel in particular, should cease fire as soon as possible to prevent the situation from escalating and to avoid any spillover of the war. Second, the safety of civilians must be ensured. The red line of protecting civilians in armed conflicts must not be crossed at any time, and the indiscriminate use of force is unacceptable. The parties to the conflict must strictly abide by international law, resolutely avoid harming innocent civilians, refrain from attacking civilian facilities, and facilitate the evacuation of third country nationals. Third, we must stay committed to dialogue and negotiation. Communication and dialogue are the right paths to lasting peace. The current conflict has interrupted the negotiation process on the Iranian nuclear issue. The attacks on multiple Iranian nuclear facilities set a dangerous precedent and could have catastrophic consequences. Fourth, we must bring together the efforts of the international community to promote peace. Without stability in the Middle East, peace in the world would be elusive. The Israel-Iran conflict has led to a sudden escalation of tension in the Middle East and has also had a serious impact on global security. Recently, 21 Arab and Islamic countries issued a joint statement of foreign ministers calling for a ceasefire, resuming talks on the Iranian nuclear issue and maintaining lasting peace in the region, which China fully supports. The international community, especially major countries with special influence on the parties to the conflict, should make efforts to cool down the situation rather than the opposite. The Security Council, as the primary body responsible for maintaining international peace and security, should play a greater role in this regard. We support the Council in taking necessary actions in a timely fashion. China stands ready to continue to strengthen communication and coordination with all relevant parties, build synergies, uphold justice, and play a constructive role in restoring peace in the Middle East. Thank you, President.
It's so interesting to hear peace and security and peace and safety coming from both China and Russia. And I just have to ask, is this conflict going to end up becoming biblical? Is this going to be a biblical conflict, a biblical war? In 1 Thessalonians in the Bible, there is an excerpt, and I'm going to read it to you, and it's specifically concerning the day of the Lord, an ominous day talked about throughout the Old and New Testament, the day of the Lord's return, the day of the return of Jesus, and what precedes his return. And I'll read it to you. Here it goes. Now, brothers, as to the times and seasons, you do not need to be written to, for you yourselves know very well that the day of Yehovah comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then suddenly destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brothers, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. For you are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night, nor of the darkness. So then, we should not sleep as others do, but we should watch and be sober. For those who sleep at night and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But we who are of the day should be sober, putting on the breastplate of belief and love, and as a helmet, the expectation of deliverance. Because Elohim did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain deliverance through our Master, Yeshua Messiah, who died for us, so that whether awake or asleep, we should live together with him. Therefore, encourage one another, build up one another, as indeed you do. That is concerning the day of the Lord. It's really just interesting to hear the prophecies that we listened to in the beginning, and then to hear Russia and China representatives both calling for peace and safety, peace and safety. Any Christian who has studied end times prophecy, those words ring out an alarm to us. We hear those words and we say, uh-oh, I know about those words. I know what the Bible says about the time where all of these people are saying peace and safety. What's so interesting is that in that excerpt, which is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 1 through 11, you see where it says, they say peace and safety. It's not one person saying peace and safety. It makes it clear it's multiple people. And that is now what we're starting to see as a result of this conflict. I do hope that this conflict does not grow and expound and draw in other countries from around the world. But I do fear that after the U.S. retaliation on Iran's nuclear sites yesterday, that this could just be the beginning, as Iran is promising retaliation for and consequences for what happened yesterday. I'm going to keep you guys updated, and I just want to remind you that there is one person who can be trusted with the peace and safety, not only of the Middle East, but of the entire world. He came once and he's coming again soon. His name is Yeshua, Jesus Christ, the Messiah. And I hope that you'll take this opportunity to really investigate, could this be true? Could the Bible be true? Could the Bible, scriptures that are over 2,500 years old, foretold of conflicts such as these that we're witnessing now? What's incredible is that we're able to watch these events unfold in real time due to the supercomputers that we hold in the palm of our hands. Most likely you're holding one now as you watch this video. This video is made possible by things like Starlink, and I have a video coming about that soon. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.